Looking back on the chart, buying PayPal between 52 and 55 just in the middle of this summer doesn't look like a bad idea at all. Why? Because we are selling way above 70. And that is the best performing stock of Nasdaq of the quarter. And how many times I was telling you guys, please don't sleep on PayPal. Please don't sleep on PayPal. How many times I wrote it in our Telegram alert group. With all that said, let's go and see what are the best opportunities right now in the market and what the market gonna provide us. Fresh stream here straight from the Aeolian Islands of Lipari. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon everyone. My name is Russ. Today is Friday and here we are on a Friday macro update here on DataDash. First thing first, let's start with the chart that I've been paying so much attention for, and I think we nailed predicting its behavior. Here, looking at DXY, I've been clearly indicating that those highs are not safe, and here we are reclaiming all of them and shooting further up to my line of 102.6 and then 103. And I've been indicating in our Telegram group that 103 would be my target for this DXY correction. And taking into account the cycle theory, I might afraid that dollar strengthening can bring us all the way into the elections of 4th November. So 1 month from here, 30 days from here, we might actually keep experiencing something like that on the dollar. And where that comes from? Clearly from the game plan I've been indicating on, of course, euro dollar, which is more than 60% of the basket of DXY. And here we are, I think, nailed this plan perfectly, exactly to perfection. If you go to any of my videos for the last month, you would see that this is exactly what I've been eyeing for on euro. The swipe of those highs, inability to accept above my fat red line, and now we are playing those M pattern bounce, probably would take down those lows, bounce slightly back, and potentially even accept in the previous range. I don't know if that's going to be enough of time for us, for our dollar strength to do that, but obviously if we lose this level of the orange line around 1.1, then for people following my content, you guys already know I would be eager to consider the first acceptance below our resistance, where we stayed all the way since August, and that could bring us all the way down to 107. What that would be for the dollar, well, guess that would be a huge a risk of attitude on the market, but maybe it's a little bit too early to yet speak about that. The same picture with British pound. I was telling you guys, I do not believe this pump has to retrace and potentially probably even break the market structure. Breaking the market structure here would indicate the weakening of the British pound versus US dollars and the further strength of DXY. So DXY pumping into election, that's my first game plan. What is my second game plan, would you ask? Well, my second game plan is quite interesting here, because despite the dollar strength, the risk on assets are performing quite well. And looking here at Bitcoin and 1 hourly chart, I've been indicating yesterday that if we're able to start closing here above 61, that my next target would be somewhat at around 63 zone, basically the retest of this resistance and the break either down, and this way we're gonna confirm the bearish market structure, and that would bring us all the way to 55 or 58,000 for one Bitcoin. It's not something that I would completely avoid considering. On the other side, if we're able to accept above the zone of 62.6 or even let's say 63 for a higher safety, then I think going back on the daily, we are playing very well, something that you've heard from me here every time when we were speaking about us changing our macro structure on Bitcoin from starting to move from lower lows into the higher low and the higher high, comparing obviously to this high, right? So this high and this high, higher high is something that I've been already pointing out in the Telegram group. Let's see this message once again, even for people who read it. This is quite an important one. I said, for the real bull to begin in crypto, you should first wait for the break above 65,000, and then following the retest of 61 with a quick surge back to 65, 66 even, and then a little retest back to 65 and target of 67. That was the game plan I was expecting, and so far it is pretty much playing out, so nothing very surprising. Of course, we can always adjust our game plan based on yields or based on dollar strength, but this is how it was. There was this break into 65, there was this retrace, of course a lot of war news, and we even touched 59.9, I would say, right? So a lot of people were screaming, we are losing 60k, the key level. But guys, frankly speaking, that was all the part of the game plan. We were bouncing at a zone of 60 to 61, and right now, if we are able to actually do what we were supposed to do, so quick surge back to 65, of course 65 is not gonna come just, in an hour. First we need, as I said, to accept above 62.6 or maybe even 63, and then we are able to reclaim this 65 zone. So that's a bullish game plan. And what's really much more bullish than just this Bitcoin behavior is the fact that we are doing all of that with a very strong dollar. So imagine what could happen in the end or mid part of the Q4 after election if the dollar starts dumping. And for everyone who's gonna ask me, by the way, Russ, what's happening with the dollar? Why it is doing those crazy up moves? Weren't really dollar so not interesting for all the international capitals because of the rate cut, because of 50 basis point rate cuts? It was everything that I said about 20 trillion unrealized profits sitting in American markets from foreign investors. They are not really liking that sporadic behavior of Jerome Powell, and they're gonna take the money out. Is that the case? Well, I believe since it's a Macro Friday, I owe you a quick explanation of why DXY is actually running. And for those you remember, last 2 weeks we've been saying, guys, I am getting out of TLT, I'm getting out of the bond ETF. Why? Because those are not behaving really well when the risk of inflation, or actually the perceived inflation. There's another really interesting point, that in developed world the media are driving the economical behavior sometimes much more than the real macroeconomical data. But in any way, the risk to be in TLT when inflation is actually not tamed is quite high. So a lot of investors starting to get out of this position. And what happens to the interest rates when less people are buying bonds? Obviously it's getting higher. And that's exactly what happened with the 10-year US government bond yield. Would you compare that chart of US government bond 10-year yield with, for example, its German counterpart? Here we're kind of playing this 0.03 and we're looking like more shooting up, while on the German 10-year government bond yield we are kind of just barely able to reclaim this support. So obviously it does not look too good. It does not look like there is gonna be anyhow higher yield provided by the European economy, and this is normal, that more international capitals, more cross-border capitals are actually reallocating their money from euro into US dollars just to be able to benefit from the high yields. And here we are talking about dozens of trillions. So obviously those moves are affecting the market a lot, and that's the reason for DXY to rally. But even with, as I said, with DXY rallying, what's so interesting here, that for example our preferred, I would say, asset class such as silver, we're really not noticing that so much. Of course we are quite concerned. There are multiple divergences that are being formed, especially on 4-hour, and with gold potentially taking a little correction here. I would say be careful, maybe no need to jump all into the miners right now. I explained why. Also because we are still, unfortunately or fortunately for those people who are not yet allocated, we are fortunately or unfortunately still cannot reclaim this resistance line on our relative junior silver miner ETF versus silver, because that will be a real move for the miners. And the same here on SIL J, we are still below the resistance, and it can be also that momentum is kind of slowing down, and we need to have a little retrace in order to come and hit this resistance one more time. I also wanted to give you one, in my opinion, high probability altcoin trade, despite it's not going to be the best risk reward. I think we're actually coiling up in there. But before we jump into the chart, I just wanted to let everyone know that, as you might have heard, Bybit is running the WSOT squad competition. So we are right now already 10 members in the DataDash family registered. Nothing changes particularly for your trading. It's just that for those who are joining the squad, they are giving a big part of their marketing budget back. So a bunch of nice prizes. Also, the early bird registration fees are being brought back to the participants and so on. So I'll leave the link in the description down below. Nothing, as I said, changed. You don't need to register a new account or to do a KYC or whatsoever. You just basically trade for the group, for the team, and then together, if the team is behaving better, then you get those rewards. Well, now coming into the charts. I found this trade for you. I think Tron, particularly, despite I'm not a fan of this project whatsoever fundamentally, if you just want to trade the volatility, I think that we can enter actually here at around this retrace. So that will be slightly around 15.6 cents for one Tron, and then we can target, for example, the previous highs. If I go here on a daily, you would understand how bullish this hammer looks like on a daily, and of course the target I provide is quite humble. It's just to tap into those fair value gaps on Ferrari that we have here, and the invalidation points. You can tighten it up a little bit. I think something around 15 cents or 15.3 cents. Coming back to 4 hourly, I think that's just a good way for Tron to be a higher beta to Bitcoin in case of Bitcoin is actually doing what we were just discussing a couple minutes back. With all that said, guys, I wish you an amazing end of the week. Much love, touch the grass, and I'm gonna be full-time back in the office next week, and we're gonna trade much more. With all that said, a big hug here from the north of Sicily, from Aeolian Islands, and I see you soon. Bye.